It's been 37 years since Dirty Dancing made Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze household names. But what she just revealed has left fans absolutely stunned. For decades, rumors swirled about their behind-the-scenes tension, unspoken truths, and what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling. But now, Jennifer Grey drops a bombshell about Patrick Swayze 37 years later, and fans can't believe it. The truth is more complicated and more emotional than anyone ever imagined. What really went down between them? And why is Jennifer finally speaking out now? For decades, fans of Dirty Dancing held on to the belief that Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze were not only electric on screen, but also shared a special bond off camera. Their chemistry in the 1987 film was undeniable, a magical pairing that gave birth to one of the most iconic love stories in cinematic history. But now, nearly 4 decades later, Jennifer Grey has shattered the illusion with a confession that has left fans completely blindsided. After all this time, why did she wait so long to speak out? And more importantly, what exactly did she say? It wasn't just a nostalgic trip down memory lane. Jennifer's words cut deeper. During a recent interview promoting her memoir, Grey spoke with startling honesty about what really happened behind the scenes of Dirty Dancing. For years, there have been whispers of tension, but most fans brushed them aside. The fantasy was too precious to question. But Jennifer didn't hold back. She revealed that her relationship with Swayze was far more complicated than the public ever knew, and not in a charming, opposites attract kind of way. According to Grey, she and Swayze were not friends. Not before the film, and certainly not after. Their working relationship was strained, filled with disagreements, frustrations, and emotional distance. She described how, during their first collaboration on Red Dawn, she found Swayze too macho and playful in a way that didn't feel comfortable. She was initially against working with him again, so when his name came up for Dirty Dancing, she had strong reservations. But something changed at the audition. During their screen test, Swayze pulled her aside and gave her a heartfelt apology. He acknowledged that he hadn't treated her kindly during Red Dawn. Grey recalled how he was emotional, even teary-eyed, as he tried to make amends. That moment softened her. She accepted the role, and the rest, as they say, is history. But even with that touching apology, things on set weren't as picture-perfect as the final film suggested. Grey went on to say that despite the intensity of their on-screen chemistry, their real-life connection never matched it. They were professionals who respected the job, but nothing more. That revelation alone sent waves through fan circles. How could something so passionate, so intimate, be nothing more than acting? And yet, what really has people talking isn't just the truth she revealed, it's the timing. After 37 years, why now? Was it guilt, closure, or perhaps something deeper? A need to finally own her story after decades of silence? Whatever the reason, the internet erupted. Longtime fans expressed heartbreak. Some accused her of tarnishing a legacy. Others applauded her bravery. But one thing was clear, Jennifer Grey had finally broken the silence. And this was just the beginning of a story far more complicated than anyone had imagined. Before Dirty Dancing turned them into pop culture legends, Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze had already crossed paths. It wasn't exactly love at first sight. In fact, their first collaboration on the 1984 war film Red Dawn set the tone for what would become a turbulent working relationship. Grey's candid remarks decades later have painted a very different picture than the one fans had long imagined. And once you hear what went down on that earlier set, it becomes clear that the tension didn't just appear overnight. It had been simmering for years. Grey remembered Swayze as charming, yes, but not in a way that won her over. She described him as a bit of a show-off, someone who constantly played pranks and tried to dominate the energy on set. At the time, she was relatively new to the Hollywood scene and still figuring out her space in a male-dominated industry. Swayze, on the other hand, was already known for being confident and assertive, and that didn't always sit well with his co-stars, especially Grey. She explained that Swayze's humor often came at the wrong time. He had a way of poking fun or cracking jokes in serious moments, which she found not only distracting, but borderline disrespectful. It wasn't bullying, not exactly, but it created an uncomfortable distance between them. She started to dread being in scenes with him. And even though Red Dawn wasn't a love story, the dynamic between the two actors was impossible to ignore. So, when Grey later learned that Swayze was being considered for the male lead in Dirty Dancing, her reaction was immediate and visceral. She didn't want to work with him again. She even told the producers that she wasn't sure the chemistry would work. It's almost unbelievable, considering how inseparable their performances will become in the eyes of fans. But behind the scenes, she wasn't starstruck. She was cautious. Still, the producers insisted on testing the pairing. That's when the now famous screen test happened. Swayze, sensing her hesitation, pulled her aside before the cameras rolled and surprised her with an emotional apology. He admitted he hadn't treated her fairly in the past. He looked her in the eyes and, according to Grey, genuinely expressed remorse. It was a rare moment of vulnerability that she didn't expect from him. And it worked. Something shifted in that moment. The apology cracked open a door, just enough for Grey to reconsider. She saw a glimpse of the man behind the bravado. Someone who maybe wanted to make things right. And just like that, the producers got their perfect match. But even with that apology, the foundation had already been laid. A foundation built not on friendship or trust, but on tension. And as filming began, it became clear that whatever magic they had on camera came with a heavy price behind the scenes. And what happened once the cameras started rolling? That's where things really started to heat up. From the moment Dirty Dancing began filming in the summer of 1986, the cast and crew could feel it. The pressure, the anticipation, and most of all, the tension between its two stars. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze may have delivered one of the most iconic on-screen romances in film history. But according to insiders behind the camera, things were anything but romantic. And now, with Jennifer finally speaking out after nearly 4 decades, we're getting a look at just how rocky the experience really was. Grey has since revealed that the chemistry fans fell in love with wasn't born out of passion or even admiration. It was friction, real friction. She described it as a constant push and pull, like two magnets forced to work together, but always repelling. Every scene was a battle of wills. And while the tension might have translated into fiery screen magic, for those actually on set, it created a high-stress environment that left many walking on eggshells. The choreography sequences, for instance, were particularly grueling. Swayze, a professionally trained dancer, approached each routine with discipline and perfectionism. Grey, on the other hand, was more instinctual and emotionally driven. Their styles clashed. She admitted to feeling intimidated by Swayze's intensity. If she couldn't match his energy or pace, frustration would boil over, sometimes on camera, sometimes off. One now infamous moment happened during rehearsals for the lift scene, the one that became the movie's most iconic image. Grey was terrified of the move and kept breaking into nervous laughter. Swayze, according to reports, lost patience more than once. He was focused, determined to get it right, and he didn't appreciate delays or distractions. Jennifer confessed that there were days when she just didn't want to be near him. The emotional weight was that heavy. Director Emile Ardolino had to step in multiple times just to keep things from falling apart. He even considered separating the two stars between scenes to avoid more outbursts. But oddly enough, this same tension is what made the film work. That real-life strain bled into their performances. The awkward silences, the smoldering glances, the explosive arguments, all of it felt real because it was. In Jennifer's words, we weren't faking it, we were just surviving it. And as difficult as it was, Jennifer also admitted something surprising, that the struggle gave her performance depth. Without the tension, maybe the story wouldn't have had the same emotional grit. Maybe Dirty Dancing would have been just another teenage romance. Instead, it became something raw and unforgettable. Still, the cost was high. The emotional toll didn't disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. In fact, once the film wrapped, Jennifer and Patrick barely spoke. There were no long goodbyes, no heartfelt farewells, just silence. But the drama didn't end with the movie, because when the film hit theaters, something happened that neither of them saw coming. The world fell in love. And suddenly, the pressure to pretend everything was perfect only grew. When Dirty Dancing hit theaters in August 1987, it didn't just become a box office success. It exploded into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Seemingly overnight, Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze became household names. Their faces were everywhere: magazine covers, interviews, late-night talk shows. I've had the time of my life was playing on every radio station. Fans were obsessed with the story, the dancing, and especially the chemistry. To the outside world, they were a dream team. But behind the curtain, the success only added more pressure and made the tension even worse. Jennifer has since said that the whirlwind that followed the film's release felt surreal. She wasn't prepared for the intensity of the attention, nor the public's expectation that she and Swayze were somehow a real couple. People thought we were Johnny and Baby, she said, but we weren't even speaking by the time the movie came out. Imagine the pressure of being expected to smile next to someone you could barely stand to be around, all while the world projected a perfect love story onto you. Swayze, too, struggled with the spotlight. He was fiercely private, and the sudden fame turned his world upside down. He was older, more experienced, and reportedly felt responsible for the film's success. That pressure turned into control. On more than one occasion, Grey said he tried to dictate how they should present themselves to the public. He wanted to protect the illusion, to maintain the fantasy that Dirty Dancing was built on real affection. But Jennifer wasn't interested in pretending. This disagreement spilled into their post-film interactions. During promotional events, their body language told the real story. Fans looking back at old footage now describe moments of stiffness, forced smiles, and visible awkwardness. There was no affection, no shared inside jokes, no warmth. Just two people bound by a movie they no longer had control over. But Jennifer wasn't bitter, not entirely. She's admitted that part of her resentment came from feeling overshadowed. While she appreciated the film's impact, she couldn't ignore how often Swayze got the credit for their chemistry, for the dancing, for performance as a whole. She felt erased in some ways, as if she were just a supporting act in his rise to fame. And yet, they were forever tied together. No matter where she went, she was Baby, and he was Johnny. Even years later, in interviews, fans would beg her to talk about Swayze. What was he really like? Were they ever in love? The pressure to maintain the illusion never faded, and Jennifer grew tired of being asked to fake it. The success of Dirty Dancing didn't bring them closer. If anything, it solidified the distance. They were co-stars, not friends, not lovers, just two people who, for a brief moment, captured lightning in a bottle, but fate would bring them together again. And this time, things wouldn't go as expected. As the years passed, the legacy of Dirty Dancing only grew stronger. New generations discovered the film. Fans kept the memory alive, and talk of the sequel or reunion would surface from time to time. But the truth? Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze came close to reuniting, and it nearly tore open old wounds. In the mid-1990s, Hollywood began tossing around the idea of a Dirty Dancing sequel or spin-off. Fans were eager. Executives saw dollar signs. And the original stars? Well, they weren't exactly on the same page. According to multiple sources, Patrick Swayze was initially open to the idea. He reportedly liked the idea of revisiting the character Johnny, but only if the story was done right. Jennifer, on the other hand, wasn't so sure. She was still carrying the emotional weight of the original experience. A reunion meant revisiting not only the character Baby, but also the history with Swayze that she'd worked hard to move past. Still, in 2005, something unexpected happened. Jennifer and Patrick were both cast in an episode of the TV show Saturday Night Live, and although the reunion was brief, it opened the door. Quiet conversations began. Could a new project really happen? For a brief moment, it looked like it might, but behind the scenes, the same tension that haunted them in the 80s came creeping back. According to Jennifer, there were creative differences almost immediately. Swayze still had strong opinions about the direction of the story and characters, while she wanted something fresh and emotionally honest. The old dynamic, the push and pull, the power struggle, resurfaced. It wasn't about ego, Jennifer later clarified. It was about history, deep, unresolved history. Every time they tried to work together, the emotional baggage came with them. Even though they were older, wiser, and more experienced, The ghosts of Dirty Dancing were never far behind. Then, in 2009, everything changed. Patrick Swayze passed away after a brutal battle with pancreatic cancer. The news stunned fans around the world. But for Jennifer, it was more than just a loss of a co-star. It was a loss of a chapter in her life she never got closure on. She didn't attend his funeral. And for years, she remained silent on his death. People wondered why. Was there bad blood? Was it too painful? Jennifer refused to explain until recently. In her memoir and recent interviews, she finally addressed it. She said she mourned Swayze deeply, but privately. Their relationship was never simple enough for public statements. We were not friends, but we were bonded in a way that no one else would ever understand, she wrote. That bond, complex, flawed, and unforgettable, was finally acknowledged. And with that, Jennifer opened the door to truths fans had never heard before. But she wasn't done revealing secrets. In fact, what she shared next would cause an uproar that no one saw coming. For decades, Jennifer Grey kept her experiences with Patrick Swayze locked away, a sealed chapter of her past she rarely opened in public. But all of that changed when she released her memoir, Out of the Corner. In those pages, Grey finally peeled back the curtain, revealing a side of their relationship that stunned even the most die-hard Dirty Dancing fans. It wasn't just the tension. It wasn't just the emotional weight. It was what she'd held back for years. The truth about how working with Swayze really made her feel. She admitted, in no uncertain terms, that she didn't enjoy filming Dirty Dancing. Not the way people think. While fans imagine the experience as a fairy tale, Grey described it as a constant emotional roller coaster. She said she often felt isolated, overwhelmed, and unsupported. And while she never painted Swayze as a villain, she made it clear their dynamic was never easy. What shocked fans the most was her confession that she often dreaded going to set. Despite the chemistry we see on screen, Grey said it didn't come naturally. I had to fight for every moment of connection, she wrote. Nothing was easy. She described how Swayze's intensity sometimes made her shut down emotionally, especially during the more intimate scenes. There was no falling in love off camera. There was no late-night laughter or shared secrets between takes. Just work. Hard, exhausting work. But the most explosive revelation? Jennifer revealed that producers had repeatedly tried to recapture the magic of Dirty Dancing by casting her and Swayze in other projects. And she turned them down. Every time. She couldn't do it. She said the emotional strain of that film was so great that she never wanted to step back into that space with him again. That wasn't bitterness. It was survival. Fans didn't know how to react. Some were heartbroken. Others were angry. Online forums lit up with debates. How could such an iconic love story have been built on such a difficult foundation? Some accused Jennifer of tarnishing Swayze's legacy, while others praised her for finally speaking her truth. But Jennifer didn't back down. She clarified in interviews that her goal wasn't to tear anyone down. It was to take ownership of her own story, her own voice. And she didn't stop there. Grey also revealed that during Dirty Dancing, she felt pressure to keep quiet, to play along, smile, and sell the illusion. I was told to be grateful, to be quiet, to not make waves, she said. It's a narrative many actresses from that era have echoed. Now, decades later, she was finally ready to let it all out. This confession changed how people viewed Dirty Dancing. It shattered the fantasy. But it also made the story more human, more real. And what Jennifer said next would take that honesty to an entirely different level, one that shocked even people closest to her. As Dirty Dancing soared to legendary status, Jennifer Grey's name was suddenly everywhere. Overnight, she became America's sweetheart. But behind that smile was a young woman quietly unraveling under the weight of sudden fame. In her memoir, Jennifer finally admitted what most fans never knew. She didn't feel like she belonged. And worse, she didn't recognize herself anymore. Part of that transformation came from a decision that would haunt her for decades, her infamous nose job. In the early 90s, Jennifer underwent a rhinoplasty that completely changed her appearance. When she re-emerged in Hollywood, casting directors didn't recognize her. Producers passed her by, and fans were confused. She went from being the girl from Dirty Dancing to virtually unrecognizable overnight. And it wasn't just about looks. It was about identity. Jennifer later said, "I entered the operating room a celebrity and came out anonymous. It was like being erased. The industry that had once embraced her suddenly didn't know what to do with her. Directors didn't see her as a leading lady anymore. The phone stopped ringing. She tried to laugh it off, even joke about it publicly. But deep down, the reality hit hard. She'd disappeared from the very world she'd once ruled. Behind that one decision was a deeper pain, a desire to escape the shadow of Dirty Dancing and everything that came with it. She didn't want to be Baby forever. She wanted a career on her own terms, a new chapter. But instead, she found herself caught between who she was and who Hollywood expected her to be. What few people realized at the time was just how much of this pressure traced back to her experience on Dirty Dancing. Jennifer felt that her time with Patrick, the struggles, the behind-the-scenes battles, and the overwhelming fame that followed, it all became a burden she never fully escaped. Every new audition came with the same unspoken question. Could she recapture that magic again? And if not, what was she worth without it? Years later, Jennifer revealed that she often questioned whether she should have done the movie at all. Not because she regretted the story, but because of what it cost her personally. She lost her anonymity, her control, and, for a long time, her confidence. "It's hard to feel proud of something when you feel like it's swallowed you whole," she wrote. But here's where things get even more emotional. Jennifer never stopped being grateful for fans who loved Dirty Dancing. She said that the movie gave her a kind of immortality, even if it also took something from her in return. And just when it seemed like her story had reached its most bittersweet chapter, Jennifer dropped another bombshell, one that connected back to Patrick in a way no one was expecting. Years after Dirty Dancing, after the fame had dimmed and the headlines had faded, there was one piece of Jennifer Grey's story that no one had ever heard, until she chose to share it herself. A deeply personal detail, something that had weighed on her heart for years. She had written Patrick Swayze a letter. It wasn't meant for the public. It wasn't for the media or the fans. It was private, a final, emotional goodbye that she never got the chance to say in person. Jennifer kept it to herself for years, until, during a candid interview promoting her memoir, a journalist asked if she ever had closure. Her voice faltered, and then, for the first time, she admitted the truth. She had penned a letter to Swayze not long after learning he was terminally ill, but she never sent it. In that letter, Jennifer said everything she couldn't say when they were working together. She apologized for the tension on set. She acknowledged how complicated their relationship had been. And she thanked him, sincerely, for giving her the most defining role of her life, for being her dance partner, even when things weren't perfect. She wrote that she understood him better with time, that back then, both of them were young, overwhelmed, and doing the best they could under enormous pressure. She said she wished they'd had the chance to talk, to clear the air, to remember the good moments without the weight of the bad. When asked why she didn't send it, Jennifer's response was quiet. "I didn't want to intrude," she said. "I didn't know if he'd want to hear from me, and I was scared it might reopen old wounds for both of us." Instead, she kept the letter tucked away, a personal way to process the grief, the regret, and the complicated love she still held. Not romantic love, but a deep, unexplainable connection forged through pain, passion, and history. When Swayze passed, she mourned him in silence, choosing not to make a public statement at first. Fans took it as coldness. In truth, it was heartbreak. Years later, when she finally did speak up, she chose her words carefully. She said she would always see Patrick as a rare and beautiful human, and that, despite everything, no one else could have played Johnny like he did. "He was magic," she said. "Even when we didn't get along, maybe especially then, he had this fire in him that you couldn't look away from." And in sharing that letter, even if only its existence, Jennifer finally found peace. But just when everyone thought her story with Patrick had come to a close, Jennifer made a decision that stunned fans and Hollywood alike. She was ready to return to the dance floor and step back into the spotlight in a way no one expected. For years, Jennifer Grey quietly stepped away from the chaos of Hollywood. After the whirlwind of Dirty Dancing, the fame, the plastic surgery, the isolation. She'd had enough. Many assumed she had retired, content to live in the shadows of her past. But in 2020, everything changed. Out of nowhere, news broke that Jennifer Grey was not only returning to the spotlight, she was developing a brand new Dirty Dancing movie. And not just as a star. This time, she was producing it. The announcement sent shockwaves across social media. After decades of silence, distance, and emotional weight tied to the original film, Jennifer was stepping back into a world that had defined and nearly destroyed her. But this wasn't a reboot. It wasn't a cash grab. It was something far more personal. Jennifer made it clear from the start. This wasn't about recreating the past. It was about honoring it. She described the new project as a love letter to the original, a tribute to the character of Baby, and, most importantly, a tribute to Patrick Swayze. She insisted that the new film wouldn't try to replace him or recast Johnny Castle. There is no replacing Patrick, she said. This story will honor him in the only way it can, by acknowledging that he's gone and by showing how his legacy still lives on. For fans, this was both emotional and thrilling. It meant that after decades of pain, Jennifer had finally made peace with her past. She was ready to embrace the role that had haunted her for years, this time on her own terms. But it wasn't just about nostalgia. Jennifer also revealed that the new film would tackle modern themes, growth, grief, and rediscovery. This is about what happens when Baby returns to Kellerman's, she said. Older, wiser, and carrying everything she's learned. It's about memory, about moving forward. What stood out most was her tone. She no longer spoke like a woman burdened by dirty dancing. She spoke like someone who had taken back her story. She was no longer running from the past. She was walking straight into it. The announcement also reignited old rumors and questions. Would any of the original cast return? Will we finally see what happened to Baby after that iconic summer? Jennifer stayed tight-lipped on the plot, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just another movie. It was her redemption. And perhaps most powerful of all, it was a way to finally say goodbye. Jennifer later admitted that working on the project brought back a flood of memories. Good ones, painful ones. But for the first time, she didn't shy away. She said she felt Patrick's presence during every step of the process. He's still here, she whispered in one interview. In every move, every note of music, he never left. But as this long-awaited sequel moves forward, one question remains. Can Jennifer Grey rewrite the ending to the story that shaped her entire life? After 37 years of silence, half-truths, and public speculation, Jennifer Grey has finally reclaimed her voice, and with it, her legacy. For decades, she was seen through the narrow lens of Dirty Dancing. As Baby, the girl who didn't need anyone to lift her, yet was constantly defined by one unforgettable scene and one unforgettable co-star. But now, Jennifer has made it clear. She's more than that girl in the corner. Through her memoir, her interviews, and the upcoming sequel, Jennifer has taken control of her own narrative. What fans thought they knew, the on-screen romance, the fairy tale success, the perfect chemistry, was only a small part of a much more complicated, deeply human story. And the woman behind that story isn't just brave for telling it. She's unstoppable for surviving it. When she opened up about her complicated relationship with Patrick Swayze, she didn't do it to attack him or shatter the dream. She did it to free herself. For years, she was trapped between the public's idealized version of her and the truth she lived with. And the truth wasn't always pretty. It was raw, painful, and often isolating. But it was real. That honesty has sparked something unexpected, a wave of new admiration, not just for her work, but for her courage. Younger generations who weren't even alive when Dirty Dancing premiered are discovering Jennifer's story for the first time and realizing that the girl who had the time of her life also had to fight for every piece of it. Jennifer's legacy isn't just tied to a single role anymore. It's tied to her resilience, to her ability to walk away when the industry turned its back on her, to her strength in sharing the painful truth about fame, self-image, and emotional weight of being misunderstood. And most of all, to her decision to come back not for fame, but for closure. She's spoken about how creating the sequel feels like finishing a sentence she started decades ago. It's not about erasing the past, she said. It's about giving it the ending it deserves. And what about her fans? Many were shocked, some were upset, but most were moved because in Jennifer's vulnerability, they saw themselves, the version of success that doesn't come easy, the version of love that isn't always perfect, the version of life where your biggest moments come with the biggest cost. Jennifer Grey may have disappeared from Hollywood spotlight for a while, but she never stopped dancing through the chaos. Now, as she steps back on the stage with a voice that's finally her own, the world is listening again, this time for the real story. And as for Patrick, Jennifer's final word says it all. He was one of a kind, complicated, beautiful, unforgettable. I'll always carry him with me. But now it's my turn to speak. After 37 years of silence, Jennifer Grey finally told the story only she could. The truth about Patrick Swayze, the fame, and everything that came after is raw, real, and impossible to ignore. One thing's for sure, fans will never look at Dirty Dancing the same way again. If you found this story as shocking as we did, don't forget to subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the untold truth behind Hollywood's biggest legends.